Wow. It really is kind of wild how fast vibe coding has just exploded, isn't it? Gone from this like niche thing to being everywhere in tech talk.
It really has. Feels like overnight.
But I bet if you're listening, you might be like me, wondering, okay, how many folks are really getting the core ideas? Not just the buzzwords.
Mhm.
You want to get up to speed, get there fast, but without your brain feeling completely overloaded.
Yeah, that's exactly the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Finding that deeper understanding that actually lets you use these tools well, it takes a bit more than just reading headlines.
Absolutely. And that's what we do here on the deep dive. So today we're jumping into this great YouTube video from Sean Kochel. It's packed with 21 tips to basically supercharge your vibe coding.
Koshal's great because he's actually doing this stuff. He runs businesses using AI, using vibe coding.
Mm.
So his advice comes from, the trenches, real practical experience.
Exactly. It's not just theory. And, what really struck me was his point about technical skills maybe becoming, well, more constant.
Commoditized, yeah.
Right. And that it's the deeper understanding the why that's going to make you stand out. That's the valuable part now.
That's the core idea he pushes.
So, our mission today, pull out those actionable nuggets from his 21 tips, help you level up your game, maybe even start building that SaaS unicorn he talks about, that super successful software startup.
Sounds like a plan. Where do we start? Tip 1.
Yeah, let's dive in. Tip 1, use widely documented tech stacks. Seems basic, maybe, but why is sticking to the known paths so important now with AI?
Well, it really boils down to how these LLMs, like Claude, for instance, actually learn. They're trained on just massive amounts of code that's already out there.
Okay.
So if you pick tech stacks, frameworks that are really well documented,
Yeah.
you're working where the AI has tons of examples to learn from,
Ah,
which means it's way more likely to find good solutions for you. And crucially, you get fewer of those weird AI hallucinations, the outputs that make no sense.
so it's like giving the AI a better library to research in. Makes sense. And Koshel's point about traditional developers still being essential, that really lands. They're the ones creating the stuff the AI learns from.
Exactly. These models are amazing tools, but they stand on the shoulders
Mhm.
of human engineers.
Mhm.
It's this cycle. Human innovation feeds AI learning.
So bottom line for you listening, want faster results, fewer headaches, stick with the well-documented stuff. Okay, good start. Tip 2 then, planning. Extensive planning. Like 60–70% of the time, that sounds intense. Why so much focus up front?
Yeah, it does sound like a lot, but Kochel breaks it down into this 4-step process that clarifies it. First, the high-level stuff. Tech stack, code base location, what you don't know yet, basic features.
Okay.
Then, really robust feature docs, like detailing APIs, data payloads, database schemas, component logic, user stories, the works.
Wow.
And then steps 3 and 4 are the actual design work, and then super granular task planning. The reason this is so vital with LLMs is, well, they're great at narrow, specific problems.
Right.
But architecting a whole complex thing from scratch, that's harder for them. Their context windows, while big, still have limits.
Gotcha. So by mapping everything out in detail first, you're basically feeding the AI these smaller, bite-sized, well-defined tasks it can actually nail.
Precisely. You're giving it a super detailed instruction manual for each little piece.
And that 60–70% figure, it really drives home how critical that planning is.
Mm.
It probably helps avoid that feeling of being totally overwhelmed later, too, if you have that solid plan.
Totally. It's your roadmap. Ensures everyone, AI included, knows the goals, the structure, how it all fits. It really cuts down on backtracking later. These early tips are all about being intentional.
Intentionality. I like that. Okay, planning's huge. Tip 3, use your context wisely. For anyone newer to these AI tools, what do we mean by context?
So context is basically the extra info you give the AI along with your prompt. Often you use like an @eat symbol or something similar to point it at specific files, folders, documentation, whatever's relevant to the task.
Okay, so like telling the AI, hey, focus on these files for this problem, but Kochel warns about these context window limits.
Yeah.
What happens if you just dump the whole project in every time?
Yeah, you can't just do that. LLMs can only handle so much info at once. If you overload that context window, the AI kind of gets swamped. Performance can drop, it might miss things, give you less relevant answers. It's definitely quality over quantity with context.
Right, you dilute its focus, so you need to be selective. Manage the detail, give it just what it needs for that specific problem.
Exactly. And yeah, some IDEs like Windsurf and Cursor are trying to automate figuring out context, but honestly,
Yeah.
your own understanding as the developer is usually better. You know that UI component lives in this directory.
Yeah.
So telling the AI that directly helps it focus. And Kochel's advice is spot on. If the AI's answers start getting worse, check your context first.
Be a context curator, not a hoarder.
Got it.
Okay, tip 4 is classic software practice. Commit between conversations. For listeners maybe newer to coding, what's committing again?
Committing code is like taking a snapshot, saving a version of your project at a point in time.
Like version history in a doc.
Exactly. Lets you roll back if things go wrong, helps manage different features being worked on. Standard stuff, really.
So why commit between AI conversations specifically in vibe coding? What makes that a good breakpoint?
Well, often an AI chat is focused on one task, right? Or a small set of related changes. So once that's done, or you reach a natural pause, committing just, it seals that chunk of work.
Okay, makes sense.
It's a clean break before the next task. And like Kochel says, even if you mess up other tips, commits are your safety net. You can always go back to code that worked.
And you can just ask the AI for the git command if you're unsure, he mentioned.
Yep, easy enough.
Brilliant. Mini save points, love it. Tip 5 builds on this, but differently. Commit solutions to the system memory. What's that about? What problem does it solve?
Oh, this one tackles that super annoying thing where you solve the same tricky problem over and over again.
Yes, reinventing the wheel constantly.
Totally. You spend ages debugging something, finally crack it, then months later, maybe on another project, same issue pops up and you're like, how did I fix that? It's so inefficient.
Tell me about it. So how do these memory systems help?
A lot of the newer AI IDEs have them built in, or they support these MCP servers, memory-centric programming.
Yeah.
Basically, you can save solutions to big problems you solve.
Like how you handled a tricky bit of styling or a debugging approach.
Exactly. And that memory sticks around. So later, maybe even on a different project with similar tech, the AI can recall that fix. Saves you resolving it. Huge time saver.
That is awesome, like a personalized AI knowledge base. Okay, tip 6. Ask the system for multiple perspectives. What's the logic here when the AI's first answer isn't quite right?
So if the AI gives you code that doesn't work or isn't what you need, Kochel suggests asking it for, say, 3 different ways to solve it.
Okay.
And this is key. Ask it to explain why each one might be valid, but also why it might not be valid.
Forcing it to be more critical of its own ideas.
Kind of, yeah. It makes it explore more possibilities rather than just spitting out the first thing it comes up with.
He shared that example, didn't he, about React Native audio compression, where this trick actually worked after the first few tries failed.
Yeah, that was a great real-world case. Asking for multiple options can uncover angles the AI missed initially, and asking it to rate the likelihood of success for each adds another useful layer.
Clever. Definitely trying that. Okay, tip 7. Evaluate your outputs against a standard. Sounds a bit more complex. What's the core idea?
This borrows from how AI agents use evaluator-optimizers. Basically, you need a way to check the quality of the AI's code.
How so?
Like, say you have a project style guide. You can tell the AI, okay, check the code you just wrote against this style guide. Or if it wrote authentication code, ask it, evaluate this against security best practices.
So the AI polices itself, in a way. And Kochel mentioned using things like Perplexity or XAI to pull in up-to-date best practices for those checks.
Exactly. Using external current knowledge makes the evaluation much stronger. Kochel calls this process a way to refactor, boost quality, and make sure the code matches your standards.
Nice. Proactive quality control. Okay, tip 8. Model selection. There are so many LLMs now. Does it really matter which one you use for coding?
Oh, absolutely. Different LLM families just seem to have different strengths, probably based on their training data. Like Kochel notes, Claude 3.7 Sonnet is often seen as really strong for coding.
Yeah.
Google's models are coming on strong too. Open source offers other things. The main point is you can often get better results by smartly switching between models depending on the task.
He mentioned that Manus app combining models and his own workflow, right? Using Claude for planning, maybe something else for stubborn bugs.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to experiment. See which model works best for which part of your process. It's about picking the right tool for that specific job.
Okay, don't just stick to one AI brain. Shop around. Got it. Tip 9, project rules. Sounds like giving the AI consistent instructions. What are these?
Yeah, project rules are basically guidelines or constraints you set up for your project. You feed them to the LLM as context.
So it always considers them.
Right. Whenever you prompt it about something covered by the rules, it factors them in automatically. Kochel says, at minimum, have rules for your front end, back end, and your style guide.
He mentioned cursor directory, too, for finding pre-built rule sets. That sounds handy.
Super handy. And you can get even more granular rules for database schema, best practices performance, state management, whatever you need.
The more specific, the better the AI's output aligns with your project needs.
Generally, yes. They act like guardrails, keeping the AI operating within the conventions you set.
Setting guardrails for your AI buddy. Okay. Tip 10, one of Kochel's favorites, apparently. Task planning. We talk planning, but this is more granular.
Yeah, this is the final step in his four-step planning process. It takes that high-level architecture and feature list and breaks it way down into super detailed step-by-step task lists.
How do you generate those?
Well, tools like RuCode have it built in. He also mentioned an open-source tool, Claude Taskmaster, specifically for creating these granular lists from your bigger plans.
So it connects the big picture to the actual coding lines, ensures it all hangs together.
Exactly that. It helps track progress, prevents accidentally building the same thing twice, and even helps debugging because the AI gets the exact context for each tiny task. Kochel also mentioned Claude Taskmaster can recursively update requirements, which is cool for evolving projects.
Sounds essential for keeping complex projects from becoming spaghetti code. Okay, tip 11, design first approach. Flipping the usual workflow. Design screens before coding features. Why?
This really centers the user experience. Thinking first about how users interact, how screens change state, handling errors, success, empty states, even animations, it clarifies what the code actually needs to do.
Right. He made that parallel to product designers and SaaS companies creating design systems for devs. Brings that same level of thought up front.
Precisely. Having that clear design target before you code means fewer changes and reversals later. Saves a ton of hassle. You're building towards a known visual goal.
Makes total sense. Blueprints before building. Tip 12. Pick a development tool that actually meets you where you are. Man, there are so many AI IDEs, Windsurf, VS Code, Cursor, RuCode. How do you choose?
Kochel's advice is key here. Choose based on you, your experience level, your life situation, your budget, not just what some influencer is hyping.
Yeah.
What's perfect for one person might be totally wrong for another.
He gave examples, right? Windsurf Cursor, maybe for beginners worried about cost. RuCode Selene for experienced folks needing huge context limits.
Exactly. And he talked about finding your tool and sticking with it. That brand loyalty idea frees up mental energy instead of constantly chasing the next shiny object.
Find your tool, find your flow, find your tooling vibe. Okay, tip 13. Create custom modes for custom use cases. What are these custom modes?
There are features in some IDEs, like RuCode, that lets you customize the AI's behavior for specific, repetitive tasks. You basically save frequently used system prompts and instructions into a mode.
So you can quickly trigger them.
Yeah. Like he mentioned a debugging mode preset to generate multiple solutions, linking back to that earlier tip, or an architect mode for brainstorming features.
It's like having specialized mini AIs within your main tool.
Pretty much. It streamlines things, makes common tasks more efficient and predictable.
Yeah.
Defining the AI's role and instructions for a mode is really powerful.
Definitely sounds like an efficiency booster. Okay, 14. Always configure up-to-date documentation. This feels like a must in tech today, right? Things change so fast.
Oh, absolutely critical. The data LLMs are trained on gets old fast. If you're using outdated docs, you're going to hit errors, waste time on deprecated stuff, miss newer, better ways. It's a nightmare.
How do you keep it current? Kochel mentioned 3 ways.
Yeah. Direct indexing in tools like Cursor Windsurf, where you feed it URLs, manually scraping docs and adding them to your project context, or using MCP servers like Context 7 to pull directly from databases.
And keep doing it regularly, especially after changes or if you haven't touched the project in a while.
Absolutely. The frustration of working with old info, it's just not worth it. Get the latest docs configured.
Like trying to build IKEA furniture with the wrong manual. Got it. 15. Add early returns and logging when debugging. Practical tip. How does this help the AI figure things out?
When you ask the AI to stick in early returns and lots of console logs, you're giving it clues. Early returns isolate code sections. The logs show the step-by-step execution flow, so both you and the AI can see exactly where things go off the rails. Makes pinpointing the problem much easier.
And he suggested building this into custom debugging modes. Automate adding the logs.
Smart move, yeah.
Yeah.
Ensures you always get that diagnostic info when troubleshooting. Giving the AI clear execution insights really boosts its debugging power.
Okay, logging and early returns key debugging tools. 16. Using checkpoint restores. Sounds like an undo button for AI chats.
Pretty much. Available in tools like Cursor and Windsurf. It's a quick way to roll back your code to an earlier point within that chat session. Simpler than a full Git commit for quick fixes.
So if a prompt just totally messes things up, you can instantly zap back to before the chaos?
Exactly. Kochel positions it as great for recovering from bad prompts quickly. Then you can take a breath, maybe do a proper commit, and reprompt more thoughtfully.
Good for experimenting without fear. Then commit properly after. Okay. 17. Understand it before you accept it. Fundamental, right? Especially with AI code.
Oh, absolutely crucial. AI code gen is fast, but it's not infallible. There can be subtle bugs, inefficiencies, security flaws.
Things the AI just misses.
Yeah, so you have to read it, understand it. Kochel even suggests asking the AI to explain its own code to you. That helps you learn and spot issues.
He said humans can often catch plainly obvious errors the AI skips over. And understanding better leads to better prompts, lower costs, tackling harder problems.
It all connects. Your critical thinking, your dev fundamentals, they're still essential. You're collaborating with the AI, not just blindly taking its output.
Augmenting, not replacing. Totally agree. 18, MVP it, then enhance it. Classic startup advice. But why specifically for vibe coding?
Because it's so easy with AI to just generate tons of features. The temptation is huge to build everything at once.
Right.
But Kochel strongly advises, figure out the minimum viable product first, the simplest version that delivers core value. Build that.
He shared that story, didn't he? Building an app for 1.5 years, then finding users ignored most features. Ouch.
Big ouch. It's a reminder to focus on what's essential first. And his warning is real. If you generate lots of code you don't understand, your project can become a tangled mess very quickly.
So start small, get feedback, then iterate and enhance based on what people actually use.
That's the sustainable path.
Yeah.
Minimizes wasted effort.
Build the core, then add the bling. Got it. 19. Clearly identify your tech in your project rules.
Yeah.
This tackles a specific annoyance.
Yeah, it's about stopping the LLM from randomly injecting libraries or tools you don't want or need. Kochel's example was perfect. The AI adding feather icons when the project already used lucid icons.
Creates clutter, potential conflicts.
Exactly. Unnecessary dependencies. And he warned it could happen with bigger things, like accidentally adding a second ORM if you're not careful.
Chaos.
So the fix is using those project rules again to explicitly list your tech stack and how it's meant to be used.
Precisely. You tell the AI, this is our stack, stick to it, prevents it from going rogue and adding stuff you don't want.
Keep control of your tech choices. Okay, 20. Security checks, super important. How can AI help here?
Kochel brings back that evaluator-optimizer idea, but focused on security. Dedicate specific time to have the AI check its own generated code against security best practices.
Especially if your project rules don't heavily emphasize security.
Right. Look for common vulnerabilities. Kochel warned about simple things, like accidentally exposing auth tokens in the front end. Yikes.
Definitely yikes. So regular security evaluations, especially for critical code, are key for user trust.
Absolutely. Security can't be an afterthought. Building checks into the workflow, catches things early, protects you, protects your users.
Vital. Okay, last one, 21. Creating new conversations as needed. Why does managing the chat history matter?
Because a lot of these AI IDs send the entire conversation history back to the AI as context with every single new prompt.
Oh, wow.
As the chat gets longer, that's more tokens being used. It can slow things down and potentially increase your costs depending on the tool. Kochel mentioned seeing token usage jump in Rucode and Selene with long chats.
So the advice is start a fresh conversation when you hit a natural break, when the old context isn't really needed for the next task.
Exactly. Be mindful of how much history you're sending. It encourages a more deliberate, focused workflow too. Kind of aligns with committing changes at the end of a thought, then starting fresh.
Keep it lean and mean. Makes sense. Whew. Okay, that was a whirlwind tour, but super insightful. 21 really solid tips from Sean Kochel.
Yeah, the big takeaway for me is that mastering this isn't just about code generation. It's planning, it's understanding, it's critically evaluating what the AI gives you. It's a whole process.
Definitely. These tips offer a real roadmap to making AI-assisted development more effective and maybe less frustrating sometimes.
Hopefully less frustrating.
So for you listening, here's the final thought. Which one or two of these tips really jumped out at you? Which ones could make the biggest difference in how you're coding right now? Think about how actively using even just a few could change your workflow, change your understanding.
And maybe check out Kochel's original video too for even more nuance.
Great suggestion. Definitely worth exploring further. Until our next deep dive, keep digging.